Africa, a continent with 54 unique countries, countless tribes, and tongues. We see a country in this continent, despite not being the richest or biggest, it is rich in things that last a lifetime. Malawi treasures such as its natural beauty, cultural resilience, and Lake Malawi are some of the continent's most underappreciated economic lifelines. Malawi is referred to be the warm heart of Africa because of the friendliness of its people and its tranquil surroundings. However, Lake Malawi, Africa's third largest lake and a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is the economic hub of this landlocked nation. This glittering body of water, which covers an area of over 29,600 square kilometers, is not only a wonder of geography, but also a vital economic hub. For millions of Malawians, fishing is their main source of income. More than 700 different species of cichlid fish, many of which are indigenous, may be found in Lake Malawi. In addition to supplying communities with food and boosting local markets, this biodiversity links Malawi to worldwide aquariums and research facilities. The export of dried fish products and ornamental fish makes a substantial contribution to rural economies. A burgeoning tourism industry is also driven by the lake. Malawi's lakeside locations, from Nkata Bay to Cape Maclear, draw ecotourists and backpackers seeking peace, quiet, kayaking, snorkeling, and genuine cultural experiences. The nation is becoming more and more popular among tourists looking for a less marketed experience because of its tranquil, friendliness, and affordable travel options. Beyond the lake, Malawi is making investments in sustainable development and agriculture, especially in the areas of sugar, tea, and tobacco, which support their traditional exports and encourage diversification into other crops like macadamia and legumes. Malawi is moving more and more towards agro-processing and resilience-based farming as climatic issues worsen. Malawi is unique not because of what it lacks, but rather because of how it uses what it has, transforming its communal strength and natural resources into a gradual but steady force for growth. I am Laura, and this is Just Africa.
Senegal stands tall as one of West Africa's most stable and forward-looking nations, a country where tradition and modernity blend with remarkable harmony. With its strategic location on the Atlantic coast, Senegal has long served as a gateway for commerce, diplomacy, and cultural exchange across the continent. From the historic island of Gorée, an enduring symbol of the transatlantic slave trade, to the vibrant streets of Dakar, pulsing with art, music, and entrepreneurship, Senegal's story is one of resilience, evolution, and pride. At the heart of Senegal's progress lies its democratic maturity. Often hailed as a beacon of stability in the region, Senegal has consistently demonstrated peaceful transfers of power and a robust civil society. This political foundation has allowed the country to focus on critical areas of development, including education, health, infrastructure, and innovation. The government's plan, Senegal Emergent PSE, launched in 2014, outlines an ambitious path towards sustainable economic growth, infrastructural development, and social advancement, positioning the nation as a rising force in West Africa. Senegal's economic landscape is diverse and expanding, from agriculture and fishing to digital services and energy. The country continues to attract foreign investment and regional partnerships. The new city of Diamaniadio, a flagship project under the PSC, is transforming into a hub for technology, education, and governance, reducing the strain on Dakar and symbolizing a vision of decentralized, inclusive development. Culturally, Senegal is a powerhouse. The influence of Sufi Islam, particularly the Mahrite Brotherhood, has shaped not only spiritual life, but also economic cooperation and communal cohesion. The nation's music, literature, and visual arts are internationally celebrated, with artists like Youssou N'Dour and filmmakers like Ousmane Sembene leaving indelible marks on global culture. This rich cultural identity reinforces a sense of unity and purpose, even amidst economic or political challenges. Socially, Senegal continues to prioritize youth empowerment and gender inclusion, with over 60% of the population under the age of 25. Investments in education, vocational training, and entrepreneurship are vital. Women's roles in politics, business, and civil society are increasingly visible and impactful, further strengthening national development. Senegal also leads in diplomacy and regional integration. It is a founding member of ECOWAS and plays an active role in African Union affairs and peacekeeping missions. This outward-looking approach reinforces Senegal's role as a stabilizing force and a champion of Pan-African ideals. With its deep historical roots, visionary leadership, and unwavering commitment to progress, Senegal continues to inspire a model of African development grounded in cultural pride, democratic values, and inclusive growth. I am Moyosore Adebi for Souqnews TV. Guinea-Bissau, a small coastal nation in West Africa, often escapes the spotlight due to its size and political instability. However, this nation possesses a wealth of cultural, ecological, and social uniqueness that sets it apart from many of its African peers. From matriarchal communities to remarkable biodiversity, Guinea-Bissau offers a compelling study in African distinctiveness. With a population of just over 2 million, Guinea-Bissau is home to more than 20 ethnic groups, each contributing unique languages, customs, and traditional practices to the national identity. The country's linguistic diversity is further enriched by the widespread use of Guinea-Bissau Creole, a Portuguese-based Creole language that serves as a unifying medium of communication across different communities. Formerly part of the Cabo Empire and later a Portuguese colony, Guinea-Bissau was among the first African countries to engage in a protracted armed struggle for independence, led by the African Party for the Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde under the revolutionary Amilcar Cabral. Its bold resistance and eventual liberation in 1973 set a precedent for anti-colonial movements across the continent. The country remains one of the few Lusophone nations in Africa, sharing strong cultural and diplomatic ties with Brazil, Portugal, and other Portuguese-speaking countries, forming a distinct Lusophone African identity. Guinea-Bissau's biodiversity is another defining characteristic, particularly the Bijagos Archipelago, a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve consisting of more than 80 islands. This ecological haven is not only vital for marine conservation, but also embodies a unique matriarchal culture where women play central roles in community leadership and spiritual practices. The islands are recognized globally for their rich marine life, including sea turtles, manatees, and migratory birds, attracting researchers and conservationists from around the world. Economically, Guinea-Bissau is highly reliant on cashew nut production, which forms the backbone of its export economy. Despite recurring political instability and limited infrastructure, the country remains an important agricultural hub with untapped potential in fisheries, tourism, and sustainable development. Its geographic position along the Atlantic and proximity to other West African nations also offers opportunities for regional trade and integration. Guinea-Bissau's resilience in the face of persistent challenges, ranging from coups and weak governance to poverty and illicit trade, continues to shape its unique narrative within Africa. It is a nation marked by endurance, cultural vibrancy, and natural beauty, striving to transform its rich heritage and strategic assets into sustainable growth and global engagement. I'm Moyosore Adebi for Souqnews TV. In an age of artificial intelligence and automation, it is easy to overlook the value of hands. Yet in Ghana, hands still build nations. From Adinkra cloth printers in Ntoso to traditional kente weavers in Bonwire, Ghana's indigenous skill economy continues to prove that African creativity is not just cultural, it is commercial. Looking beyond the surface of heritage to the engine room of informal training systems that have powered generations and could power Africa's industrial future, Ghana comes to mind. In Ghana, apprenticeship is not a fallback. It is the main highway for millions of young people who are learning practical trades like metalwork, leatherwork, carpentry, fabric dyeing, and advanced tailoring. According to the Ghana Statistical Service, more than 80% of artisans are trained informally, yet they contribute significantly to the GDP. This is not unique to Ghana. From the woodcarvers of Kenya to the bronze casters of Nigeria, Africa is a continent of craftspeople. But Ghana offers a model where traditional skill acquisition meets modern enterprise development. Institutions like the Council for Technical and Vocational Education and Training, COTVET, have begun integrating indigenous knowledge into formal systems, developing a dual-track model that combines age-old methods with certification, mentorship, and business incubation. As Africa looks for solutions to youth unemployment, the answer may not lie in importing Western education models, but in elevating what we already have. Imagine if every African country invested in formalizing informal skills, adding value chains, technology, and access to export markets. The challenge, as always, is perception. We must stop seeing artisanship as inferior. Ghana is showing that welding can build wealth and textile design can drive trade. The African hand is skilled. The African mind is gifted. What remains is for policy and investment to catch up with potential. In Ghana's apprentices, they don't just see workers, they see a future workforce Africa can proudly call its own. I'm Moyosore Adebi for Souqnews TV. When we talk about South Sudan, Africa's youngest nation, having gained independence in 2011, we often focus on its political journey or natural resources. But there's something else that holds deep generational value in South Sudanese lives, which is cows. In South Sudan, cows aren't just animals, they are everything. They are currency, they are status, they are identity. Among groups like the Dinka and Nuer, a man's wealth isn't measured in cash, it's counted in cows. Cows pay dowries, settle disputes, mark the birth of a child, and even the death of an elder. Boys grow up in cattle camps, learning not just to herd, but to lead. Songs are written about prized bulls. People name themselves after their cows. It's love, not ownership. And no, they don't eat them. Not casually. Cows are sacred. They are milked, admired, and even mourned. Only in rare ceremonies, funerals, farming, or great misfortune is a cow killed for food. To eat one is to part with a piece of your soul. I'm Moyosore Adebi for Just Africa, only on Souqnews TV. Lesotho, a country like no other on the African continent, and in fact, like no other in the world. Nestled entirely within the borders of South Africa, Lesotho holds a unique geographical distinction. It is the only independent nation on Earth located entirely above 1,000 meters in elevation. Its lowest point, at 1,400 meters above sea level, is higher than the highest points in countries like Netherlands, Denmark, or even the United Kingdom. This extraordinary altitude earns Lesotho its nickname, the Kingdom in the Sky. Lesotho is one of just 3 countries in the world that are completely surrounded by one other country, the others being San Marino and Vatican City in Italy. But unlike them, Lesotho is not a microstate. It boasts a proud population, a strong cultural identity, and a landscape marked by rugged mountains, deep valleys, and fast-flowing rivers. What also makes Lesotho stand out in Africa is its climate. While much of the continent is known for its warmth, Lesotho regularly experiences snowfall, especially in its highland regions. In fact, it is home to Afriski, Africa's only ski resort south of the equator, drawing tourists who seek winter sports in an unlikely location. But Lesotho's uniqueness goes beyond geography and weather. The Basotho people are known for their iconic wool blankets, worn with pride across the country. These are not just for warmth, they are deeply symbolic, representing milestones, rites of passage, royalty, and social status. No traditional ceremony is complete without the presence of these beautifully patterned and color-coded blankets. The traditional Basotho hat, or mokrotlo, is another national symbol, so important that it appears on the country's license plates and currency. Lesotho also harnesses the power of its water. Its Lesotho Highlands Water Project exports fresh mountain water to South Africa while generating electricity for domestic use. Water, often called white gold, is one of the country's most valuable resources. In many ways, Lesotho defies expectations. It is a country of heights, both literal and cultural. In a continent known for deserts and plains, Lesotho offers snow and slopes. In a region often shaped by lowland agriculture, Lesotho rises up proud, elevated, and unshaken. Lesotho is not just unique to Africa, it is unique to the world. This is the uniqueness of Africa, and today we spotlight Lesotho, the kingdom in the sky. I'm Moyosore Adebi for Souqnews TV. Africa is a continent of different individuals, tribes, languages, and even destinies. Every African country is unique in its own way, with something that sets it apart from the others. Today, on the uniqueness of Africa, we take a look at Chad. Chad, located in north-central Africa, is a land of extremes and quiet resilience. What makes Chad truly unique is its extraordinary geographical and ecological contrast. Stretching from the harsh Sahara Desert in the north to fertile savannas and wetlands in the south. One of its most remarkable features is Lake Chad, once one of Africa's largest freshwater lakes. Though it has shrunk dramatically over the decades due to climate change and overuse, it remains a vital lifeline for over 30 million people across Chad, Nigeria, Niger, and Cameroon. But Chad's uniqueness goes even deeper. It is one of the most linguistically diverse countries in Africa, with over 120 local languages spoken, despite a relatively small population. French and Arabic are the official languages, but the diversity reflects its deep ethnic and cultural complexity. Chad is also home to Zakuma National Park, a conservation success story in Central Africa. Once plagued by poaching, the park has rebounded and is now a sanctuary for elephants, lions, giraffes, and rare birds, showcasing the country's ecological richness. In the Enedi Plateau in northeastern Chad lies another treasure, a UNESCO World Heritage Site filled with ancient rock formations and prehistoric cave art, some dating back 7,000 years. These natural cathedrals in the desert tell stories of early human life long before modern civilization reached the region. In terms of identity, Chad is where Arab and Black African cultures blend, creating a unique socio-cultural fusion seen in its clothing, cuisine, languages, and traditions. Despite economic challenges and regional instability, Chad remains a country of untapped beauty, resilience, and cultural depth. It is a land where survival meets strength and where the desert holds not just sand, but stories. This is the uniqueness of Africa, and today we spotlight Chad, the bridge between the desert and diversity. I am Moyosore Adebi for Souqnews TV.
Okay, as you know, my name is Babatunde Jala Epega. I shortened it. That was part of my journey to Baba Jala Epega. I was born here in Lagos, just a stone throw away from here, in actually Lagos Hospital here. And I was expelled from school. I went to Corona Ikoyi at the age of 6. My teacher, who I found to be quite unjust at the time, made us all stand, and I remember this, even though it's like almost 45 years ago. But I remember standing outside Corona School in the heat with all the students in my class because one boy had done something and no one owned up. So I found that quite unjust that all of us had to suffer. So I picked up a stone and I threw that stone at my headmistress's glass, and it broke her window. She told my parents, and my parents weren't very happy, of course, but they realized that I wasn't meant to be in school like that here. So the teacher actually asked me to leave, and my parents took me to England. They said, take this child to England. We can't control this child here. He's a wild fellow. So as soon as I got to England, I went to Tunbridge Wells in Kent. I went to school there, and it was the most cold experience I've ever had in my life. I was 6.5 going to 7, and I went to boarding school at that age. And I think that woke me up in life straight away, that even in comfort, you still have steel. And by that I mean that everyone would think, oh, you are lucky, you went to England at 6, 7. But I was very young. I was put in a dormitory with children from England, from Japan, from Saudi Arabia. We were all very young. There was a lot of crying in the dormitory, 12 boys, 6 on each side. And the room was very cold. I remember the cold. But one other thing I got to learn was rugby. And through my life, rugby and learning to deal with my condition and environment has instilled a strength in me. And as we know in Nigeria, you have a lot of things that happen that are out of your control, but you have to find a way to evolve and adapt. And I think from the age of 6, 7, I was very lucky to have that. I went to the oldest school in the world called King's Canterbury, started by St. Augustine in 598 AD. This was the secondary school I went to. And my life seemed pretty, what they say, gold-leafed at the time. Everyone's like, you enjoy, you're in Nigeria, you're in London. I learned to speak Spanish. Unfortunately, I lost my Yoruba, but I'm trying to get that back. I learned to speak Spanish and French. But at the age of 17, my father had a stroke, and he was working too hard, obviously. And sadly, my mom and dad had split up by that time. So my whole life that seemed so rosy stopped because my father's business partners, all of them somehow took the business and it went away. And from that going away, we were left destitute. My dad was in a coma for 3 months, and my mother, who wasn't working, because my sisters and I have 2 lovely older sisters, Yewande and Gigi, we were still in school. So much so that my last year's school fees were not paid. But one of my uncles kindly paid for my school fees, and my mother had to go to work. She started her own business. She too was a journalist, Mrs. Ibiene Epega, but she started a chauffeur driving company and started using cars to drive people with her staff. So from that age where I thought a university was going to be given, I was left floating in the abyss because we didn't have financials. So for 1 year I had to work in a post office in London, and it was quite an eye-opener for me, but it didn't stop me from adapting. And again, adaptation helped me grow. So from being in a very wealthy family as a young man, coming to the age of 17 to become an adolescent, a grown-up, I realized that nothing is given. My father sadly was in a stroke, and when he had that stroke, he became semi-paralyzed. For another 30 years, he was semi-paralyzed. But my mother died quite soon after that time in a car crash on the road to Warri in because my Okrika side and Warri side is where my mom was from, even though my father was Ijebu. So my mother died at the age of when I was 21, which was 20 actually, when I was starting university. And my father was semi-paralyzed. So I became the father of the family, even though my sisters were older and far more intelligent than me. But being the man, I had to take control of a lot of things. And I think that's what really gave me the tenacity to understand that I really need to be someone who doesn't just walk in one field. I need to spread my risk. From my university, I did mathematical economics and Spanish. I was able to go to University, Queen Mary College, London University. And from there I finished, as I said, I worked again. So I worked before I went to uni, and then I worked afterwards. And for me, life is about collaboration, communication, and tenacity. And I think that those were my first 21 years. There were less people in Lagos in those days. I won't lie. I grew up every summer and even Christmas where we could afford it. Back in my day, 1978, 79, Naira was 0.8 to £1. So you can understand that people were very wealthy. I think in those days there was like 40 million people. It wasn't that much of it because my dad was an estate surveyor. So we used to go to Abuja a lot. And he was one of the surveyors that gridded Abuja when it was being built during the late 70s, 80s with Obasanjo, and even before Murtala Mohammed. They were gridding it. And Lagos, or should I say Abuja, was made the capital. And Abuja is a model city of Milton Keynes, which is a model city of Paris. Just like Brasilia in Brazil was changed from Rio de Janeiro as a capital. So for me, coming back to Lagos was a joy. I enjoyed it because I was young. We used to just walk, run the streets on our bicycles and cycling, just exploring. Everything was open. There weren't as many cars. It was no big apartments, and there weren't as many people. So I had a beautiful time. There were a lot of lizards on the ground, and we used to throw stones at them. But that was my own youth. We used to go to the beach a lot. Bar Beach was around. It's not around now. Sadly, my dad used to take me to Bar Beach to see the capital punishment killings of armed robbers, and even Dimka, who was one of the leaders of the coup d'etat against Murtala Mohammed. We saw him shot there. Saturdays was a big day. And NTE used to have a channel. I think they still have their studio there. So one of our aunties, Miss Julie Coker, was there. So we saw a different side of Nigeria. We would go to Ibadan. We'll go to Ijebu. We'll go to Benin. We'll go to Port Harcourt by road. In those days, you could travel, and along the way, we go to Akure. You pick up mangoes, you pick up coconuts. My dad would pick up palm wine. All these things on the road that I don't know if you get it now because security is an issue. So for me, it was a romantic time. I think fashion, evolving through Nigeria, has started as a siloed industry. By that I mean every individual was doing their own thing, whether they were a seamstress, a tailor, a designer, a stitcher, they were doing their own thing. But we are realizing that with the 200 plus million people we have in Nigeria, you can't be an individual alone doing your own thing. So the evolution of fashion that I've seen in my own small way, as someone who's worked in the industry, is that there's more collaboration. The designers are looking for hire specialist artisans to help with their stitching, the styling, and the putting together of clothes and accessories. So I'm also seeing small grassroots shoots, very small at the moment, of the government playing a part in bringing together some kind of foundation so people can articulate their fashion designs to the world, because we have seen it in a lot of music. Obviously, Afrobeat is one of our biggest exports in this country. Obviously, there's oil and all the others, but I'm talking about within this entertainment, luxury, lifestyle industries. So we're trying to learn from that how private sector can play a part to enhance this fashion sector. So now we're seeing a lot of vibrant colors, a lot of styles. Men fashion is big. It's not just women's fashion. Men's grooming is massive. Hair and beauty as well. So men are taking care of ourselves more and more. And accessories. Accessories, I think, is fundamentally the quick fix of fashion, where we can enhance and create jobs and hyper growth in GDP by focusing on this. And this is where I implore the government with, working in mineral resources, our precious metals, semi-precious metals, help those industries to grow. There's a great lady, Janet Adeyemi, who works in Women in Business, and she is working within that. Let's help our fairer sex or the female gender to grow in business as well, because there's a fundamental knowledge that if half your population are women, as ours is roughly, or maybe 51%, 52%, you have to educate the women so they too can add to GDP. It's a simple economist theory. You can't leave them out of it because it's very important. And these industries in fashion are enhanced by women, and we need to push that forward. I think the banking system needs to be augmented, and I'm saying this from the government's perspective. The ease of doing business in Nigeria, as an investor myself, a foreign investor as well as being an indigene in Nigeria, the problem is not getting your money to Nigeria, it's getting your money out of Nigeria. Not that you want to suck all the money out of the country, but what can help is the floating exchange rates, the flow and liquidity of money that can come in and out of the country. A lot of investors are worried about how they get their money out of Nigeria. So I think our banking system, going back to the central bank, which they're working on, needs to be much more fluid. So people feel they can invest and take money out. But also, we need to articulate what is on offer. We need to start some kind of documentation of who is available to have investment with, where they can be found, because it's because we are quite an opaque economy, meaning that people can't see the end of where they're putting their money. Once we do that basis and open up the lights within which kind of businesses are available to be invested in, I think a lot of investors, domestic and international, will be more willing to put money to it. I think content creation for me has been an evolution. I started as an ex-banker, as I said. I used to trade futures and options in Barclays Bank. I was on the Life Exchange, trading bonds, and I found that wasn't my life. I wanted to be more closer to people. Some people can be bankers on the trading desk or trading floor, but not for me. So I started doing events. I was very lucky enough to show that I was quite adept at doing events. So a big company called Richemont, they owned Cartier, Dunhill, Hackett. They were part of British American Tobacco. They took me on to do their events. So I was doing a lot of polo matches, a lot of Christmas parties, a lot of brand activation events in England. So for me, I got a lot of content knowledge from that. Different styles, people, different countries. But in the last 10 years, I felt that helping companies like LinkedIn, Google, all kinds of big banks in Europe and America was not my remit. My business, EMC3, was going very strongly in America. But as a Nigerian man, I didn't feel love in America. I know that everyone says it's the land of opportunity, but being someone of my own African descent, I didn't like the mentality there. People are good, but the infrastructure is racist institutionally, as we know. So I felt I wanted to give something back to Nigeria. And with all the 20 years of, at that time, about 17 years of knowledge I gained from doing some of the best Grand Prix parties in the world, Formula One, around Monza, Silverstone, Abu Dhabi, I was doing a lot of events. I thought, let me take this back to Nigeria. I didn't have to come back to Nigeria. I wanted to. And I know with all our grievances with Nigeria, if you ask many Africans about Nigeria, they'll say, they look up to us. You guys, you have Chinua Achebe, you have Wole Soyinka, you have Fela Kuti. What's your problem? You have Chimamanda Adichie. What's your problem? So we have to take ownership and say, yeah, we do have all these people. We have Afrobeats, whether it's Burna Boy, Davido, the Venus Bushfires, all these different people that are exported. Let us look inside and say, wow, we do have a lot. So I wanted, as a content creator, to show Nigeria in all the different sectors that we do have a lot. And that's why with the marketing and communications company that I've started, my own company, I felt I could touch so many sectors. And finance, as I mentioned, I work with banks. Also government, Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission, a very great entity. I work in fashion, with brand labels and people across the board. There are great shops like Alara here that also promote African fashion and African business. And did you know even Leventis does a lot of research, Nigerian bottling company, to help this country. And you know, Nigeria was blowing glass 1,000 years, almost 1,000 years before Europe knew glass blowing. And it's been found in Oyo State only recently. So it's very important that architecturally, we take ownership of our country. The Nok civilization that has been in the mid to, I think it's above Abuja, near Benue, and even Niger River, above those basins, that has a lot of artifacts and a lot of archaeological excavation potential. But we've allowed that just to linger. People have stolen a lot of our artifacts. Nigeria was known for Benin bronzes. We were the best smelters of iron before people were smelting iron. So these are things we have to take stock of. And me as a content creator, I bring all that information together and I make sure that people acknowledge it and are aware of it. So then that will uplift us all. Now, this is a political question, but I believe with our background of the last 20, 30 years, we've had, sadly, leaders who have been militarily inclined, let's just call it that. And as we know, military people, they don't like educated people because educated people will ask questions. So we have had what we call a dismemberment of education in Nigeria for the last 35 years. And that has played an endemic part in retarding the gross domestic productivity of our country because our youths and even people up to my age and older have not had the infrastructure, middle-class education that is needed for a country to grow. You look at the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century in Europe, especially in Britain, and you look how they were expanded by merchants and artisans and specific skilled workers. Apprenticeships were big, education was huge. There was what they call a noblesse obligée, a nobility obligation that people who are rich give back to institutions, not to church, to institutions that will help education. And that is where I think we've had a disconnect. Education was lacking. So for me, the way that we can help, it takes time. This new government is in. They are trying to implement the 8-point agenda, which is a good agenda. But everyone's looking for results now. Nigeria has been in a very bad state. There's global downturn. Obviously, cost of living is so high as it has been for a while. Nigeria is exacerbated, but in Europe, cost of living is high. There are some stupid wars going on around the world that has meant oil prices have skyrocketed. And with the rocketing of oil, everything goes up price-wise. So Nigeria needs to reevaluate education and apprenticeship. I believe even in fashion industry especially, apprenticeship is very important. Whether it's weaving, designing, marketing, online, whatever it is, factories, you need apprenticeship. And that's the quick fix of education. But education is fundamental to everything. Education of men and women, or girls and boys, both. Let's be honest, we need both sides of our genders to work together. Yoruba, we've always been what we call a dual binary kind of culture. We've always thought of male and female as one. And it's very important, even in our names, Taiwo and Kehinde, you won't know if it's male or female. So we have to really educate ourselves that we can work together. And I think our women are our future. And I can't even emphasize that more. And education is key. But it takes time. I think Japa syndrome is very real. Everyone wants a better life. Let's not lie. You want a better life for yourselves, but for your family, your parents, your children. And the opportunities in Nigeria, even when you have been educated and you finish graduate here, to find jobs is not easy. The infrastructure is very bad for job creation. And this is being worked on, we know. And the last 8 years has been fundamentally broken. But we know this new government is changing that. But specifically, Japa in Canada, they need our brains. You go across the world and you ask any nation, especially America, who are the best educated, the best, integrated, and the most proficient people, Nigerians. So it's not that we are stupid, it's that we don't have the infrastructure at home. And America, Canada, Europe, they're giving us the infrastructure. So getting out of Nigeria is not easy. There are opportunities and policies that allow it, but going across the border to Libya is not the way. You spend $5,000, $4,000, which is almost 4 or 5 million naira to try and get to Europe, and then you're treated like a dog when you get there. That's not the way. But, you know, there are certain policies that can take you to these countries. And in Britain, for instance, it's not all, the streets aren't paved in gold, but if you earn £1 in Britain, you send that home, that £1 is 1,300 naira. So, and the minimum wage is £14 an hour now in Britain. So you can do the maths of that. So someone who is earning £14 an hour, if they work 10 hours in a day, they've earned over £100, which is 100,000 naira. So the maths, of course, is what makes people want to go there, because even if you are working there, obviously you're paying British rates, so your rent, your cost of utilities, your food and drink, your transport comes into play. It's not cheap there. But the money you send, even if you're only sending £100 a month back to your mom, that's 100,000 naira. So, or 130,000 naira in today's rate. So you can do the maths. That's why people are going. And the security in these countries is, and the education, to be quite frank, is better. But it doesn't mean they are better. We have to build a house, you must thatch the roof from within, so your roof doesn't cave in. And I think that's very important. Not that people shouldn't go home. I mean, go out of the country, but they should always come home as they can. Because we need, you see the Pakistanis doing it, you see the Indians doing it, you see the Arabs, they go home and they build their own countries. It's not good to just japa and leave. You have to come home small. I think my success is down to, as much as I can say a success, because it's still a book that is not finished and the stories are still unwritten, is a tenacity of hard work. It's very important that people understand that it takes a lifetime to look like an overnight success. It doesn't just come. What I'm still doing, I'm not the most successful in my business, but I love my business. And if you can find something that you love and you can make money out of, then you're in heaven on earth, to be quite frank. I think my spirituality and my faith is very important, as is my wife's. My wife, Helen Epega, she wrote the world's first Pidgin English opera. And we've been staging it here in London. We played in Cape Town, in Nairobi, and in Lagos, And we've staged it in London. We're at the Royal Albert Hall next year. I'm executive producer of that. So I think my success, to add to that, is that I put all my eggs in one basket. And I work very hard to make sure I research and obtain knowledge of the next thing, or what was the last thing. I'm a historian as well. And I put things in perspective. And I try to add value as I can. But as my momsy used to say, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So I like to listen as well. And from children you can learn, from grandpapa you can learn. So humility is very important. I'm not arrogant with it. And I think that's the most important part. Collaboration, humility, and shared drive. But also knowing that for me, Saturday and Sunday, I'm off. That's my time for the family. I take a break. Sunday, even God rested on the 7th day. Me too, I rest. I'm not 24/7, even though this weekend we have a big fashion event, but that's work. But when I take my tools down, it's tools down. No one can call me on Sunday morning. So you can't be BOing to people. Never let anyone own you like that. That's what I say. Someone calling you on Sunday morning, obviously in journalism, in film, it's a different from projects. I'm not saying every time, but just be aware of yourself and your mental health. That's the most important. Sure. The world's first pidgin English opera is a show about a Nigerian fabled people. It's almost like Orisha, but it's not. There are people who are Mami Waters as well as they are spiritual people. They are the guardians of the galaxy, to use an expression. There is God, the all-faithful God, and the all-knowing God, omniscient, omnipotent. But below that, there are all these almost demigods that look after, let's say, this sector of the universe. And these people are singers. They sing opera. But they sing it with pidgin English. And you know, pidgin is a language that is known by most Nigerians, but it's a language that people shun and say, it's a bad language. But they speak pidgin in Hawaii. They speak pidgin in China. They speak pidgin, Old English Cockney is pidgin. American even is a form of pidgin because they Yankified English. So what my wife has done, Helen Epega, she's also known as the Venus Bushfires. She's an Afrofuturist musician. She composes songs. So she put together this compilation, which is a pidgin English opera musical. And it's a show that lasts for about 45 minutes or an hour and a half. It depends if you're doing the short version or long version. So we have tenors, we have sopranos, we have violinists, we have kura player, and my wife plays something called the hang, which is like 2 tortoise-shell steel drums that sound like a harp. And she plays that, and she sings. She's the main protagonist in this. And it's a drama about all these people that have come, the many people, who are meant to look after the planet, but they lose their voice. So Earth is, because God is angry with them, the Earth, and says these people are rubbish. But the many people say to God, please, give them one more chance. They're not that bad. I know they're fighting, there's lots of wars, but give them another chance. So the lead Kanate of these many people has to go to the Venus Bushfire, which is the heavenly celestial place, to bring the voice back, to sing Earth back into harmony. So it's a drama, and it kind of plays on our old cultural awareness in Africa and heritage of Nigeria of there are other beings. And you must have faith in your ancestors as well as in a God. And the deities, as we know in Yoruba, I think there are 7 deities, and these are very important cultural awareness that we try to give to children as well. I think the filmmaking in Nigeria is burgeoning. AFRIF, the African Film Festival, International Film Festival, is on now, which is a great show. I helped incept in 2010, many years ago. We had it in Port Harcourt. It was Governor Rotimi Amici that started that campaign, but it's going on very strongly now. Nollywood, as we call it, is being noticed by the international market, whether it's Netflix or Hollywood. I would like to tell you something, actually, which is, I haven't divulged this for many years. My great uncle, whose name is Pa Orlando Martins, God rest his soul, was one of the first African actors in Hollywood. He acted in the 30s with people like Ronald Reagan, Katharine Hepburn, and Bob Hope. And he always played a part as an African prince or chief. He was never like denigrated or made into a lower African slave or anything. And I think that instilled something in my mind with this film industry. I think it's very important that Nigeria as it is, we have some great actors like Wale Ojo and Ramsey Noah. They are playing part in producing their own shows. And it's very important. Like in America, you obviously have people like Mel Gibson, Robert De Niro, who have produced their own films as well. That Nigerians are not just actors or technicians, they are also producers and directors. It's very important that we have that link within our industry. And we make friends and we forge relationships, not just with Hollywood. There's Bollywood, the Indian industry, and there's also Chinawood, because China's film industry is massive. Technically, I think that just as big as Hollywood. So we must look to ourselves in Africa as well. There's some great film makers from Zimbabwe, South Africa, Ghana, and I think collaboration I always use collaboration because I would not be here without collaboration. Obviously, my wife, you collaborate with your spouse, but also my businesses. I have a very good English business partner. He's really a business partner. I've started a new business. I collaborate with all kinds of industries and different sectors. So for film industry, I think it's important that we push our heritage forward, because people want to know about Nigeria. In Africa, they love Nollywood stories, and that's a fact. And we can expand by using distribution. Distribution is key. Netflix, all the Hollywood film houses, negotiate with them. Even if you don't get the best price for this show, make sure you check your contract, make sure you get it for your next film. So I think that's important, distribution. While I'm still alive, that's a very good question. Hope springs eternal with me, and I am optimistic about Nigeria. I think Nigeria is not what we all will think it will be. It's it's a country that needs to be more fluid. We have in diaspora a lot of powerful individuals and groups. I think we need to connect even more with those individuals and groups who need to invest in Nigeria. Our youth is very talented and is very able, but it's also very abundant. So we need to find a way to link up education, apprenticeship to these youth to give them something that is productive to work in. And that means expanding your mind as parents. It's not just doctors, lawyers, bankers that we need. We need artisans, we need creatives, and that's the most important point. It's a mind block. So for me, if we can work on Nigeria's mind psyche and the taboos of we don't want our child to marry a musician. You know, even as a musician, you don't just have to be a rapper. You could be a music engineer. You could be a filmmaker. You could be an engineer that works with the technical aspects of editing. You could be a designer. There's so many aspects. So I say to my utopian Nigeria, learn from your brothers and sisters. International research online is very important. And for me, the dream is to see Nigeria as a fluid country of strength in Africa, where we're trading with African countries and we're using what we have as our assets. Technically, of course, we need Europe and America and everything, but we have it in Africa. We have it in Nigeria. So my beauty of Nigeria would be if we become our own Wakanda, working with other African states and enhancing our own GDP as well as our region and our continent's GDP working together. Gosh, my favorite, what's the first one? Food. As you can see, I like my food. I like a mixture actually. I like amala. I like yams. I swallow very well. Whether it's with ogbono soup, that's very good. But also, from my mother's river side, there's one seafood okra that my mom used to make. And I still strive to find that. I go and find that whenever I go away. In London, you have some nice Nigerian restaurants, and in Lagos, of course, as across Nigeria. But nothing like home cooking. When my wife makes me a nice, I suppose she makes a goosey for me, eba, and that's my staple. My best music, I love Afrobeats, of course, but predominantly I'm a Fela man. Ebenezer Obey. I like the old styles. And I also like Zaire music. There's high life that comes across Africa. But to be lied to say I don't like Jimi Hendrix. I like Jimi Hendrix. He's a guitarist, a Native American, African-American guitarist. I love his kind of music. So those are my mainstays. And Gorillaz and De La Soul are still very great music of mine. Those are my Spotify at the moment. What was the other question? I like wrestling. They used to call it Gidigbo back in the day, Yoruba wrestling. I used to love that. I haven't seen that much lately, but I like Nigerian wrestling. Obviously, we play good football. We're great footballers as well, globally. But you said Nigerian sports. Polo. Nigeria, I like Nigerian polo as well. To my young brethren and children of Nigeria, I say it's important hard work. Hard work, research, and belief in yourself. Obviously, times are very tough at the moment, and money is tight. But with your own creativity, you can build your empire from there. I always believe that from one's mind, you can make wealth, and you shouldn't give up. Obviously, if you're not very great at one thing, you find what you are great at. But always be honest with yourself and treat others how you want to be treated. And remember, collaboration is the key or the little sister of success. And always have a smile. Very important. That's what I say.
Cashew nuts, ranked among Ivory Coast top cash crops, play a crucial role in the country's economy, generating substantial revenue and supporting livelihoods across the country. As the world's leading exporter of raw cashew nuts, Ivory Coast contributes an estimated $800 million annually to its economy and also serves as a vital source of income for over 410,000 families, particularly in rural areas where few other opportunities exist. Cashew trees flourish in Ivory Coast northern regions, including Bondukau and Savannah, known for its high-quality nuts and extensive plantations, just as Worondogu and Bagwe in the north central and northwest are also emerging as key producers. These regions not only drive Ivory Coast cashew production, but also support local livelihoods and economic growth. However, the country with over 29 million citizens is yet to fully realize the potential of its cashew industry. Despite being the top producer, the country processes only 7% of its cashew domestically, resulting in lost opportunities for value addition and job creation. Specifically, a recent data reveals that only 22% of the country's cashew nut output was processed domestically in 2023, even as the volatility of global cashew prices poses risks to farmers' income and overall economic stability. Concerns also arise regarding labor practices in some cashew farms and the environmental impact of deforestation for new plantations. To address these challenges and maximize the benefit of its cashew industry, Ivory Coast must focus on key strategies moving forward. These include investing in local processing facilities to boost job creation, export value, and farmers' incomes. Furthermore, the Ivorian government body overseeing the cashew sector, ARECA, must promote fair trade practices and ethical sourcing to ensure better prices for farmers and improve working conditions. Sustainable farming practices will also help to protect the environment and ensure long-term cashew production. According to a recommendation made at a workshop organized by the World Bank, Tax exemptions and access to credit facilities will help to tackle some of these challenges. Furthermore, the private sector can also invest in research to develop high-yielding cashew varieties, improve processing techniques, explore new cashew products, as well as develop and implement digital platforms that connect farmers to market in order to facilitate financial transactions. Organizations like the Africa Cashew Initiative (ACI) must also assist in data compilation in the value chain at macro, meso, and micro level. By addressing this and harnessing its cashew potential, the country can further enhance its economy and build a more sustainable future for its citizens. Israel